Hey
All
there.
right, hello.
Howdy.
Hey. So we are checking out Natural Thrust by Roucan. I don't know if how am I supposed to say that, by the way?
Oh, just a Roucan, like a toucan, you know?
Okay, that helps. Okay, Roucan. And Garbage Gargoyle?
Yeah. Uh,
He's Zach. He did
oh,
sound at
I'm
the beginning.
Zach. Yeah, forgot to mention that. Yeah, I'm also
Okay,
Sultan of Sirloin. That's the listed what's it called? Composer for the in the game jam posting.
gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll mute the stream audio and we can go ahead and get started with the game here. Oh, it's gonna full screen anyway. Cool. So I guess can you talk a little, each talk a little bit about your background in game development or music development, as the case may be?
Yeah, go ahead, garbage.
Yeah. I mean, um, I just started making music for fun a couple years ago, and then I've always wanted to be like a game composer, and I've noticed like these game jams like popping off the last couple years, but I really haven't participated because I felt like I wasn't where in a place where I could like keep up and like make music quickly. But I think after some practice, I really got excited and started writing a lot. And yeah, it's mostly just been a hobby. I do some audio engineering stuff um, for like college, but composition and like video game music is definitely um, what I'm the most interested in. And yeah, I just signed up for the game jam on a whim. This is my first game jam, and did the Game Maker Toolkit Team Finder, and that's how I met Rukin and a bunch of the other folks who worked on the game. And yeah, that's how it all worked out.
Nice. And Ruken, how did you? Oh, wow! I can actually zoom in and out. That's cool. Yeah. So, what was your background in development?
I'm a software engineer by trade, and I've always dabbled a little bit in engines and such, trying to just figure out. I like games, but yeah, I've never really committed to anything. Never got further than like maybe a little uh, tech demo, not even prototype phase. And this is my first game actually produced here, and um, yeah, I just went on Team Finder, gathered a bunch of people, put this together. It was a great time.
Nice. So yeah, I'm. What are the numbers that I'm actually seeing next to each dial?
Yeah, so that's your dice roll. So you can rearrange them just by dragging them over top of each other.
Okay.
But essentially, so it'll run each of those three moves in order when you hit launch. So first you'll do bottom left for 5, like magnitude. That's how like powerful your thrust is going to be. So like ones, for example, they'll barely affect your uh, they'll barely apply any acceleration to you, so they'll
Okay.
barely affect your course. But something like a 6 is going to affect your course a lot. um, it is a little bit tricky though to get the hang of for sure.
So hang on. What's the order that these are run in? Is it top to bottom or bottom to top?
Top to bottom.
Oh, okay. So it's top to bottom, but then these are just the magnitude next to them each.
Next to the direction, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I appreciate that I'm not racing against any opponent, so I can still feel like I win. Does that change in the other levels, or is it always just like a try to get personal best time?
Just a personal best time for now. I actually wanted to put in like just a multiplayer mode where like you would set your turn and then your friend sitting next to you would set their turn and then they would play simultaneously.
Hmm.
Um, I thought that'd be kind of fun and goofy, but yeah, our focus was just to get it working. Uh, and so we put in just a little timer. But 20 seconds is good for your first try.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Well, thank you for the explanation. I think I like basically started to get it once I actually had a more complete understanding of how it was supposed to work.
Yeah, that is definitely a little confusing at first. I think, I mean, a lot of the comments we got are looking for a tutorial or something, you know?
Yeah, I mean, come on, people. You know it's a game jam. You know how hard it is to get a tutorial in the game. Like, just read the itch.io page.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, not that my itch.io page description was that great.
I mean, you can still go in and change that though.
Yeah, it's true.
yeah.
All right. So can you talk a little bit about the inspiration behind the game? You mentioned like always being a little interested in like engines and. that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so I like space. I like racing games. There's this old racing game I think I had on like PlayStation or PS2, where you drove like a hovercraft or something, and I don't know. I always thought it was cool. And but yeah, like recently, I'd say in the past year or so, I tried to make like a kind of a 3D space racing game that dealt with like real forces, like this game does.
Hmm.
But I found like as you got faster, it got like a little stressful because you felt like your thrust doesn't have that much impact on your ship anymore.
Hmm.
And then it also like just there's so much going on in a 3D environment, and I kind of gave up on it because it was a little too like confusing to control. Um, but yeah, when this game jam theme came out, I was like, huh, well, maybe if maybe if we pause it, slow it down, it'd be easier to kind of understand what your ship is doing and kind of plan out what kind of thrust you want to apply to your ship next. And yeah, so we just sent it.
Yeah. I think one thing that would help with the like vector addition is like showing a simulation of how those forces are going to be applied in real time.
Yeah, yeah, that was definitely talked about too during the development. And now at the time when we were talking about it, I was kind of against that because I felt like it kind of took away from what made like a low skill player or different from a high skill player. You know what I mean? That ability to kind of think ahead in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but now like I've watched a few more people play it and I've played it a bit myself, and there definitely is something that needs to be done to make it more clear about what like how you're going to control your ship. And that's definitely near the top of my to-do list, I think.
Yeah, I think just like because how is the physics system just done with like Unity's built-in physics?
Yeah, it's just add force.
Okay, so theoretically you could run the simulation forward and maybe not account for like collisions and bounces and whatnot, but
Yeah.
perhaps still like show a little shadow of like a like net prediction of where the character is going to end up.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, it is a little complex, but yeah, you're right. If it uses Unity's built-in simulation, yeah, we could do it that way. That's smart.
I mean, I certainly have no idea how accurate that's going to be. Like, especially like if a collision is involved. Like, I think what you can do is you can just run it forward again, like show that little shadow where like it's predicted to go, and then um, if you collide with something, just have it like turned red, and then not run the simulation any further than that.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, for sure.
Because I'm basically just relying on the fact that I'm bouncing off the walls here and using that to
Yeah,
control for my direction.
I was probably only able to make this corner after my like 15th attempt on this level. Um, it definitely is pretty hard to do, but honestly, it can be pretty rewarding if you do get the hang of the system a little bit. You can yeah, you can take these corners pretty smoothly, and it feels really good to do a full corner without colliding. So I like that about the game.
I like that you've managed to capture the fact that this is how I play other racing games too, is just constantly oversteering. But you've managed to capture that in a turn-based instance.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially like racing sims, right? I play like Dirt 2 and like F1, and I find, how at the end of a big corner, there's always like that gravel pit. I'm always in the gravel more than I'm on the tarmac, so.
For me, it kind of caps out at like Mario Kart, and then when I used to play Need for Speed Hot Pursuit on the GameCube with my cousin.
Oh, nice.
That's a good one. That's a good game.
And he would always let me play as the McLaren F1, and it didn't matter because I would just be going from one guardrail into the other, just like bouncing back and forth. Is the only reason I know what that car is because because I used to play as it in that game because I just saw it's the one that has the biggest numbers, and he's like, yeah, you can go ahead and pick that. It doesn't matter because you still can't win even if you have it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the standard cart Mario Kart syndrome. Like if you're just playing on couch co-op or multiplayer, the standard go kart is just like it's too good. It's too balanced. It's awesome. At least from what I can tell.
But yeah, I think it would really help people to understand. what the physics impulses they're affecting are. Even just having like a little like number one, number two, number three next to each of these dials would help a lot.
Oh yeah, definitely. I actually was thinking about that too. That just the control menu here was kind of something that we were working on like right up until the deadline. Like as you can see, the numbers here are kind of hard to read because they're
Mm,
orange on the dice, but if in the other levels they're gray, it's just because like I was halfway through updating it and then we had to submit.
yeah. Um, oh, and then I think one thing that would be a lot of fun, right? Once the users actually made it all the way through the race, um, reconstruct their run and replay it so they can see themselves like bouncing off walls and stumbling through the whole thing.
Oh yeah, definitely. And like racing ghosts is something that I think this game could benefit from a lot because if you like nail a corner or something
Hmm.
one time, and you're racing your ghost, you can kind of see because the ship turns in the direction that it applies its thrust, right?
Yeah.
You could see just by the ghost kind of where you need to go, to corner properly. You seem to be getting the hang of it now, though. You're going so much faster.
Kind of. But yeah, I would say like I understand theoretically what I'm supposed to do. Can I execute on it? Probably not, but we'll see.
I believe in you.
Almost, almost.
Another thing that actually was recommended by someone commenting is like an indication of your current velocity while it's paused, right? Is like sometimes,
Mm,
especially if you're really thinking about what to do next, you're like, oh wait, how fast was I going, right?
yes.
And it's
And
such an important element, right?
yeah, and I don't mean to keep harping on this, but I think that is something that's also solved by the simulation because if you can see like what direction, like how far your ship is going, like just with a little vector arrow, right?
Yeah,
That's all you need to see. Like you can see the simulation of where you're currently going by changing the thrust values, but also like showing the hmm. So the only thing I'm realizing now is like yes, giving you that little like shadow simulation of where you're going to be would help. It might help too much. It almost becomes like a perfect information game as long as you don't crash, because you can just tweak the knobs until you see like, oh, there we go, I do that and I go in the right direction.
yeah. But like a system like that, even if, we do decide that it's not ideal for like a kind of a competitive environment in the game,
Hmm.
it definitely is something that I would like to put in at least like the first 5 levels, right? So when you're getting used to playing the game, you have that guide, and then maybe, as you go into the harder levels, it's like, okay, now you don't have that simulation. Can you
Hmm.
still corner properly?
Yeah, yeah. It would be. I think some indicator somewhere on the screen of your current velocity would definitely help and not give away too much information. So I think that's a great suggestion.
Yeah.
Sapient's been actually having a couple of comments here. So having some leaderboards by storing the value of the players in the list. Man, yeah, being able to like trade ghosts back and forth could be a lot of fun. But again, I don't know if that's entirely within the scope of like. Do you have plans to continue development of the game, or maybe just like a bug fix post jam version?
Um, Honestly, like I kind of want to. I don't know the rest of the gang how they feel, but I know garbage is down for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I
But
really want to make more tracks.
but yeah, I think it'd be fun to put like maybe 10 levels in this game. Not overdo it, but definitely fix up the controls, add a little more like oomph to like when it pauses, have some indication that time is paused, you
Mm-hmm.
know, with some effect maybe, have direction indication, and then yeah, some tutorial levels as well. Yeah, no leaderboards, proper scoring, maybe a multiplayer mode, just round it out a little bit. But I don't know if I want to take this into something like a multi-month project or anything.
Got it. Yeah. Um, Man, this is a really long racetrack. Holy cow.
Yeah, this is a real one actually. It's called we call it Moon Jello, but I can't remember what their F1 track is called. It's like Mugello or something, or I can't remember. It's in Turkey, I think.
Oh, that's
But
fun.
it's a real track. This is the first one that was in the game, and it's just like it was way too long, so we added the other two. But once you like, I mean, if you want to take the time to practice a bit, I think this track is pretty good for for like best times, right? Because when you're comparing with your friends, right, 32 seconds versus 31 seconds isn't as interesting
Yeah.
as like 2 minutes 40 versus 3 minutes 20, right?
Yeah, so how am I doing here? Like, is 2 minutes 50 seconds for where I'm at in the track? Is that any good at all?
I think it is. I think my first run on this was 4 minutes. So, take that as you will. And my best time is probably 2:35, like, or something around there.
Uh, Sapien's mentioning I was also taking part in a game which made a game jam. You mean? For our level design, we just copied certain parts of an F1 track. Yeah, I think. I mean, why not, right? Like you know these are like professionally designed courses, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I don't know like any of the science behind race course design, right? Like, I really was planning on leaning into like F1 tracks, or I don't know if you know what like autocross is, but it's kind of like a slower paced but more cornering, kind of
Hmm.
hobby racing. Um,
I'm not familiar with that one, but
they just have
I've
really simple tracks with a lot of cornering. It's pretty cool.
yeah, I guess like I'm just familiar with Formula One by reputation. I guess it's not something I've ever watched a Formula One event.
Hmm.
There we go. 3 minutes 15.
That's awesome. Post it in the comments.
All right, can do. Do you want to talk a little bit about the actual development process?
Yeah, sure. So we did use Git for this,
Hmm.
and it's done in Unity. The way we kind of started it was, uh, one person worked on like the scene, like just
Hmm.
getting a ship flying with controls and everything, and the other person, like another developer, worked on like the um, menus and such, while I worked on the art, and Gargoyle worked on the music.
Hmm.
And then once we kind of got all our step ones kind of done, we integrated, and then we started working like more so in parallel, and then we would integrate every hour or so, and
Hmm.
it um, the development definitely smoothed out once we were integrating more frequently, I think. Yeah, that was a huge help. Um, yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty cool because I like for being a composer, I guess songwriter for the game, like I was kind of like um anticipating like the because I couldn't there was no like assets to the game, so like okay, it's gonna be a space racing game.
Yeah.
I was like techno music, I don't know, like some drum and bass, some like really crazy like spacey stuff with chromatic chord sequences that just sound really trippy. Um but yeah, once there were like some playable like demos, and this is my first time using Git, so that was really cool to just like play the game and then mess around with it and just update it as it kept getting better. But yeah, once I saw like the game, it was a lot easier for me to write, and there's definitely some last minute like sound effect integration, and ideally I would have liked to use Fmod to
Hmm.
create like a more like have more control over the audio, but I'm just learning it, so uh, I wasn't really ready to integrate at that fast of a pace. But I think now I'm able to definitely keep up a bit more. But so we just use Unity's default like sound listeners and sound emitters, but then I think Meowser's who's not on the call today.
Hmm.
I think they definitely they did a lot of the sound integration, and for originally I would like to have like the sound effects so that whenever the player runs into the wall, it's like a different like bumping noise, but instead, because time constraints, we just assigned a parameter to change the pitch of
Hmm.
the crashing sound effect based on the velocity of which you hit the wall, to kind of make sure that the sounds don't get stale, which in turn created this really like chaotic, like squeaky, like wall collision sound, which I really like, and it's definitely grown on me a little bit.
I definitely feel bad for the crew of whatever this ship is that I keep like mashing them against the wall at such high speeds.
Yeah, we were even thinking about putting in like like a cockpit camera so that you could see like it's just creating like whenever they like kind of like Doom where
Yeah,
when
yeah, yeah.
the guy gets like shot or beat up like you can see it in his face and like see him wincing, and I think that would be
Hmm.
really cool. It's a nice little touch. Yeah.
Yeah, all right. So do you have a any useful shortcuts or clever hacks in Unity that you might want to recommend to others?
One thing, I mean, this is kind of like obvious Unity stuff, right? Like use prefabs.
Hmm.
But prefabs benefited us a lot in this project, and not using them definitely hurt us. Like, I mean, for example, the bug you're seeing right now where your numbers are orange, right? That would have been
Hmm.
solved by prefabs. And I know when I was like modifying the pause menu, um, that was really helpful to be in a prefab. It not only lets you work while other people are working without any, risk of conflicts, right? Because they're just using the prefab and then you're
Yeah.
just editing the prefab, right? But it also makes it so when you make one change, you're sure that it was applied everywhere, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, I can't say enough. Use prefabs.
Yeah, it's a good
um,
call for
something
sure.
in something in Sprite that helped me as well is like saving like a custom palette. Um,
Hmm.
that's something that I'd never really done before. I'd usually use like a palette image.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, using a actual palette file was also really helpful because, we needed a new level within like the last hour of the of the jam, and I was able to open a sprite, load the palette, throw in the level, and get it in the game way quicker because we had the pause menu prefab all that, but also an A spray. Yeah, I had all those colors ready to go, right?
Yeah.
And I think for me like something that really um well now in retrospect like using middleware like Fmod or Wise would really help with the like the sound, because Unity's default like sound effects like integration is just really clunky and it's not meant for super detailed audio control, whereas like um using Fmod really helped out a lot, and it's
Hmm.
free I think if you're under the budget, whatever their budget is.
Yeah.
um and it literally just integrates into Unity like a plugin. It's like a drop down menu, and it's just the best thing ever. I'm in love with Fmod. It's so good. Um, and just having like a dedicated audio software to work with outside of like just the same thing, and yeah, it's once you get it set up, it's a dream come true.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So do you want to talk? I know we kind of like briefly touched on this, but like, do you have some any other thing like anything else that you want to get into the game if you are going to continue development on it?
Um.
Yeah, I mean, just to summarize what we said already, right? Like
Yeah.
revise the controls a little bit, add some tutorial levels, add a few more effects, maybe that cockpit cam. Um, but I think garbage, right? We wanted to add maybe a unique like music track per level as well. Could be fun.
Yeah, and even like as you get closer to the end of the track, the music gets more intense. That would be pretty easy to implement, as well as so like really good player feedback thing would be whenever the game pauses or whenever you go into re-rolling your thrust, like having a like low pass filter kind of cut off the higher frequencies, so that way the player knows, okay, like they hear it's time to choose. And then as soon as like the choosing's over, just like open up those upper frequencies so you can get like a more it would just like give really good feedback. I feel like that that like sound effect. I don't know how else to
Hmm.
Yeah.
describe it. Um and have that be automated so that when you're rolling that happens. Um yeah.
Yeah, another thing too, I think would be cool is like, I mean, I already talked about a little bit about revising the control system, but I think having the dice roll in like with an animation rather than just the
Hmm.
numbers change, I think will make it like more obvious, I guess, to the player that the numbers are actually changing. Because I know when I was playing, like sometimes I'd just forget that the numbers were even there. But yeah, having them be a little more in your face, I think would be helpful.
How important do you think it is to reassign the numbers? Because I mostly don't bother.
Yeah, I think it is important. I've seen a couple situations you've been in where you've collided with a wall because you didn't reassign the numbers.
Hmm.
Um, but again, like it's just you don't always need to, and so yeah, you forget sometimes. Like, and that's I think that's a flaw in the design a little bit.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what you could do to like maybe enforce the necessity of it a bit more.
Yeah, maybe I we would roll 3 dice and then give them to the player, and they have to actually assign them every single time. That might
There you
be
go. Yeah, that could work because you can.
yeah.
Well, I'm wondering. Well, this would take it a bit less in the precision sort of way, but more of like a party kind of thing of like you set your dials and then you roll the die and then you have to assign the numbers based on the rotations you've already input.
Oh yeah, that would be fun, I think too, yeah. I mean, that's how the game, like the vision was originally, right? Is like a party game. Like I wanted to have like 4 ships and you're
Mm-hmm.
playing with your friends and you don't know what turn they did before it happens. So by the time the simulation happens, you're knocking into each other. Like that's the way I always had it in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Um but yeah, so I'm not against those party game type mechanics.
All right. Well, if anyone has any questions in chat, now is the time to ask them. But otherwise, where can people find you on social media, or do you have any other projects you'd like to plug?
Like I said, this is actually this is my first so I don't have any other projects, but I do have a Twitter. Not that I've really posted on it, but but probably some game dev stuff I'll post on there in the future, like dev logs and the like.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing the link. Thanks so much for sharing the project. I think it's going to take me a little too long to round out the rest of this track here. Although I feel like I'm actually getting pretty decent time. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
no, I think you're 20 seconds ahead of where you were last time.
I guess you can actually know, like, with a decent amount of certainty, just like how you're doing based on where you're like rounding a curve in a track.
Yeah, a little bit. Although sometimes it's hard to remember, right? Like, oh, at this corner, what was I at? You know?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think the
Um,
ghosts would be helpful.
Sapient is asking me or asking the developers, did it bore you to play this level for the first time?
Yeah, I'd say it bored everybody to play it for the first time. Um, yeah, that's that's definitely the case. It's definitely a level that would work well as a 10th level, maybe, but even then, it may even be a little too long.
Yeah, I think that's yeah, that's a good point. The length of the level increases so dramatically over the previous ones that I think that the overall experience, like yeah, you do want a nice long meaty level that you can really get a disparity in times between like someone, as you were saying, it's no fun to compare just like the small time disparities. But this is maybe a bit much when it's bigger than you can even see at maximum zoom level.
And like, I think if I wanted to do, like, if I really wanted to commit to this project, um, a mode for like reverting your last move, like going back in time,
Hmm.
could be useful as well for like training. And I think it would make a level like this a lot, I don't know, a lot better to play because you'd be able to train on it and you'd be still having a good run even if you make a few mistakes.
Hmm.
And then you can really try to commit for like a no revert run with a good time. And it'd be like I feel like that little bit of stress, right? That intensity would make it less boring and it'd be okay that it was long. But yeah, I feel like we just don't set up the player properly right now to like prepare them for enjoying this level, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely like getting more into it on my second playthrough here. I don't think I'm gonna make sub 3 minutes, but I'm doing pretty well coming in on the at the end.
This is a perfect time to face the inside of the circle rather than the direction you want to go, but
Yeah. Well, that would be the right thing to do, but we'll see. We'll see what I can manage. Like I said, I think the timing of this might actually work out perfectly. But anyway, I guess um yeah, I think that's about everything I have to ask. Oh my goodness, adding obstacles on top of the everything else. I don't know.
Uh,
That could make it even a little more chaotic. Maybe like boost pads.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. Like there are obstacles like in the game. We just
Mhm.
didn't use them because of that fact. Like you can see actually the thing that stops you from going backwards at the beginning, those were supposed to be obstacles that were placed
Yes.
amongst the track. But we are like, we'll just we'll just leave it.
Word of mentions having this be like golf where it's counting the number of strokes. That could actually be interesting.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean the timer kind of works that way already because it does pause in between. Um, but yeah, it's like it's hard to know. I guess it's 3 seconds, so you could count, but yeah, definitely a turn counter would be helpful, I think.
Yeah. I'm also wondering if like it would be too intrusive to add what's it called? Like just a voice that reads like the directions to you as you start the first level. So that way, um, I don't like reading, even though I should. Wait, maybe I shouldn't. Well, anyways, yeah, I think just having like a huge booming voice that like gives you these instructions where where the voice is all bit crushed would really help out. I think too. And maybe add some like little character to whatever is facilitating the race.
I feel like even just letting the player experiment, like let them launch one vector at a time and give them a more wide open course to try out as their like very first thing. Um, like the player can sort of get a natural understanding for how the game works pretty quickly rather than like you actually don't need very much in the way of explanation. And like if you I know what you mean, like most players will not read a tutorial, they won't like read how to play, they want the game to teach them. And I
Mhm.
think you can accomplish that with like very little text, like maybe not nothing, but just a couple short sentences.
Yeah. Yeah, your
Yeah.
point about doing one turn at a time, I actually thought of that as well. I was thinking maybe like the first levels, you're only planning one move in advance, and then as they get harder, it goes up to maybe like something like five even. But yeah, again, time constraints. But yeah, that is definitely a good idea.
I think working from like one is the tutorial and then you unlock two and three almost immediately thereafter is still fine. Like once you get the idea
Makes sense.
of like the first two levels are still tutorials. The first level is just a tutorial for how to do the vector thrusting, and then the second tutorial is okay, but now you can do three of those, and then it can even be the exact same level, but now the player can see how they're comboing up by like unlocking more than one, and like yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah, no, actually, that is a good point. Yeah, yeah, introduce it quickly. Just give them the room to understand it, right?
Yeah, yeah, just like a more generous track width, and by specifically repeating the first level into the second level, but now you have the ability to like do it in three bursts. That is like, okay, I conceptually remember what I did last time, but now I realize I can chain these moves together, and you know, maybe you get some unexpected responses with the way that you set your impulses. But I don't think you have to go above three. I think three is actually like a really good set. Like doing much more than that, um, I think there's a good flow between the time that you spend adjusting the direction and the time that you actually spend watching it happen.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Actually, that was kind of a lucky. Like we just kind of put three. Just like we'll do three for now. We'll change it if
Mhm.
we need to. But it did end up working pretty well. I think it is a nice pace.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's where we're going to call it for now. But thank you so much for coming on and sharing the game and taking the time to do the interview.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for having
Thank
us.
you for having us. Yeah.
All right. And yeah, if you do end up working on a post jam version or just any other project down the line, I'd be more than happy to take a look at it. So bye bye for now.
Thanks.
Oh,
See ya.